Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I have a special guest, someone who I love following on Instagram. I love all of her posts from PR to products to marketplace and also her fashion. She's wearing a blazer. I already said it's stunning goals. And I heard it was thrifted, which is even cooler. So, Cory Sargent, I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Before we even hit record, you were starting to share a bit about your
Mhm.
background and your story. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Let me hit record. So, in the context of what you're building now and how you've been able to bring so many unique pieces to the table and create your own brand and also line of products, I would love to hear more of your brand story. I
Mm.
know you have a PR agency also, you have a product line. I have your cards with me right here. So give us the scoop. How did this all come
Start.
together? Yeah.
Yeah. I have two companies. I have Sargent PR, which is my PR company I've had 6 years. And then I have Lady Sargent, which has always been what I call like my creative side hustle, though maybe I should stop saying side.
Right.
And yeah, while I was at my last PR agency, I really needed a creative outlet. And so I created Lady Sargent, and it started as a vintage jewelry business. I loved going to estate sales, and I was like, maybe I should. I'm buying so much for myself, maybe I should sell it to people. And that was super fun. And then I started making my own designs, like sweatshirts and hats, and just drawing. And then in the pandemic, I created Say It, Do It, which is definitely my largest product to date. And
So
it's
cool.
Truth or Dare to Connect. And like a lot of us, I was reflecting on, what I was needing. And I was needing connection with the people in my life and also more play and fun. And so it really bridges those two things. And yeah, it's been so fun to launch it into the world and see people enjoying playing it. And I still take it out with friends and family, and it's been great.
That is so cool. And the questions are really good. I
Oh,
mean,
good.
what is a lie you tell yourself?
Tough
That's a
one.
Kickstarter
Yep.
of a conversation. Like, oh damn, okay, we could go
Yeah, we're
on for a
getting into
while.
it.
These questions are really good. So I would love to hear what was the background of even starting to ask yourself these questions?
Mm,
Did you start just writing in your journal questions that you wanted to learn about people? I would love to hear how you came up with these questions because they're
yeah.
very particular in the sense that it really gets to the core of someone.
Yeah. Well, I'm a very inquisitive person naturally, and I'm a Scorpio and a Gemini rising. So I love depth and I love to ask questions. So, yeah, in the pandemic, I was definitely being self-reflective and wanting to get to the core of things internally. And then I was also felt like we were all kind of socially awkward, needing to relearn how to interact with each other. And so I was at first thinking I would make something that was like a reflection for yourself, like a journal or something. But then I was taking a bath and I was like, what? I don't know. It just came to me. I was like, Truth or Dare, a version of Truth or Dare to Connect. Say It, Do It. The name popped up. And then I was so excited about it. The next night, I wrote 100 questions in an hour. I was just so lit up by it and wanted it to happen.
Wow. So tell me, after making that list of 100 questions,
hmm
how did it become this product in my hand right now?
Yes. I wrote 100 questions. One of my best friends is a copy editor, writer. And so I reached out to her, and most of the questions from that original list are in there, but she helped me like reword some things. I did a bunch of mock games, which is really important, just to see how the questions actually work while playing. And I made some tweaks, got some feedback from friends, and then I hired a designer. I wanted it to look like a few things. Um, like 60s, mid-century French film posters, Frank Stella, and like vintage games I also looked into, and she just nailed it. Like she combines all of those things and did such a great job.
Totally. And so let me ask you this. How did your PR background help
Mm.
launch this brand? Because what a great skill set to have launching a new product.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I work mainly with a lot of emerging to mid-sized brands. So I've definitely, I've worked with maybe since my beginning of my career, like almost 40 to 50 brands. So I've definitely seen how they have grown and operated. And um, initially, when I launched, I definitely did some PR outreach, which was great. We've been featured in like Harper's Bazaar, Elle Decor, Hunker. And so that was definitely beneficial. And then I think just not being afraid to put myself out there and get rejected. That's a huge part of it. And I think being in PR all these years, I'm really comfortable with putting myself out there and also knowing that you're not for everyone and to focus on the people that are excited about you.
That's such great advice. And I think for so many founders, especially in the early years, the idea of getting rejected is just
Hmm.
so intense that they
Yeah,
tend not to put themselves out there. Do you
absolutely. It's
have any
vulnerable.
it's so vulnerable. Do you
So
have any
vulnerable.
advice of when someone has a new product and they're excited about it, but they're like, "I don't know if other people will be excited about it." Could you give us a little bit more of, like, how you just personally navigated that?
Yeah, I mean, so compared to other things that I've created, Say It, Do It has been such a great example for me this way because my ego wasn't attached to it for the reason that I was just so wanting it to exist. Oh, sorry, someone's calling me.
No
This is what
worries.
happens when you're alive.
Exactly.
um, so yeah, I was just so wanting it to exist, and I wanted to play it with my friends. And so to me, I was going to be so thrilled if only my own community wanted to buy it. And I think having less attachment to what other people thought, um, and how it was going to be perceived really has helped me throughout the process, with the ebbs and flows that are natural in growing a brand, and also just not taking things personally. So yeah, my advice would be, when thinking about what you want to bring into the world, just have it be something that you want to exist, and not paying attention to what the trends are or what other people are wanting to see. And I think it just helps. Yeah.
That's very solid advice. I personally found you IRL at New York Now. You were in the Bulletin Incubator, which was so
Hmm.
cool. Your booth looked fantastic. Could you give us a little insight of how you're building the brand behind the scenes?
Yeah. So initially it started with trying to get into smaller shops, and also getting some press. And so my first few years have been focused on that. And then my current strategy, and I'm not quite ready to share, though I'll share with you offline,
Okay, perfect.
which is exciting, just because it's in the works. But I do have one major retailer that is potentially buying. So that was my main goal for this year. And the reason I wanted to go to New York now, I just think that if I'm going to grow the brand, it does need to be seen by a bigger audience.
That is incredible. What
Yeah.
also was behind putting yourself out there to do a trade show? Have you ever done a trade show before?
No, that was my first trade show. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I just wanted to it was great to get feedback, honestly. And my main goal was to get one major retailer. So if this came through, it would be amazing. Yeah, but it was just so helpful to like meet other brands that are in kind of a similar place and hear their stories, brands that are further along and have made bigger partnerships and what that looks like. So I got a lot out of it.
I love it. For Lady Sargent, because you're now creating what it sounds like is a marketplace for conscious, playful products, creative products. Do you have a vision of growing that marketplace and creating your own product assortment? Are you going more into the cards? I
Mm.
would love to hear that because as someone who's a
Yeah.
brand strategist, when I was doing research for this episode and just following along, I'm like, ooh, I love a brand with brand extensions and creating essentially like your own ecosystem of what you're doing. So if you
Mhm.
could nerd out with me about
Yeah.
what you're building, I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've definitely left it a little open-ended for myself because I've always wanted it, even when figuring out launching Say It, Do It, if I should have that be separate. I decided to have it all be in one place because, I have so many interests and I want to kind of see what plays out in my life. But I am working on a children's version of the game right now. So I'm very excited about it. I just had my first mock game with two kids.
How cool is this? Well,
Yeah.
I loved on the side of it, it does say for adults and emotionally intelligent children. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I like that phrasing. And so that totally
Hmm.
makes sense now that the second product will be a kids version of this card deck.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I went to an event called Fashion Mamas, and it's parents and their children, and I had the game out to play, and the kids were the ones that were so excited to play it, and they did such a beautiful job of answering the questions, and they just seemed like they wanted to be asked more depthful questions, and it was really fun for their parents to see how they answered it. There's like a question, what do you want less of? And like one younger child said poop. And then the older child said, my parents fighting. And the mom was like, we're working on it. So it was kind of beautiful to see.
Wow. And what do
Yeah.
you see as the age groups of the cards?
I'm figuring that out. It's a little tricky to navigate. I think 5 to 12. Creating the do its, which are the dares, are harder because you want them to be easy enough for the little kids, but challenging enough for the older. So, yeah, it's definitely the process has been slower for me than the first game that kind of just, fell into my lap. And yeah.
Well, it sounds like also too reaching out to a new community of people to
Hmm.
practice and test. So I'm sure that has something to do with that also, right? As far as
Yeah.
connecting with a new group of mom events and things like that so that you can test the new set of questions.
Exactly. Yeah. And also just being sensitive to even just like, the game I played the other day in the current version, they'll be like, give yourself a head massage for a minute. The kids couldn't handle a minute. So 15 seconds, like simplifying everything and putting myself in kids' shoes, and just making sure it's something that is yeah, easy enough for them to play, but also helping them grow and be comfortable with their emotions. Like one of the questions is, when is the last time you cried? And the dad with the kids that I was playing the mock game, he was so happy that question was in there because his son was uncomfortable with it. And he's like, no, I want you to be comfortable crying. It's okay. It's safe. So even just like that little moment is so important.
That's so important. Where do you see your marketplace going? What would be the cool, audacious, big vision of it?
I don't really know quite yet. My fiance is also a creative, and into design. So we are really hopeful that some idea comes to us that we could work on together because that'd be really fun. So that's something that's kind of in the big picture, whether that's part of Lady Sargent or something else. Um, but yeah, so I'm not quite sure. That's a good question.
Well, I love that you're keeping it also open ended.
Yeah. I think I've just noticed for myself that the ideas just kind of like come when they do, and to not force it, and just trust that it'll make sense what the next step is.
So many creatives have trouble, in my experience, working with 1,000 plus founders at this point
Mm,
and creatives of keeping things open ended to a certain amount because they feel this pressure, often self imposed, which I understand that they have to know every single detail of what they're
right.
going to do until until they know exactly how it's going to play out in order to put a product out there or put themselves out there or start talking about it. What would you suggest to someone who loves what you're doing in the sense that keeping it slightly open ended, letting it flow a bit more? I would love to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, I think something that has, the intention with Lady Sargent has always been my place for, like, my oasis for creativity and fun and play. And so I've always wanted to maintain that. And I think that forcing, you know, to come up with new products if I'm not feeling it doesn't feel like the original intention. Um, and I think also it's always been really grounding for me to have my PR business while growing Lady Sargent and Say It, Do It. I think that it's just made it so that I can just kind of put less pressure on it and have it grow organically. And I think energetically that's felt. And so, yeah, ideally, there are definitely times where I'm hoping next idea comes to me faster, or I have like a longer game plan. But I think I just try to maintain what my original intention was and just kind of trust.
I resonate with that so much. And I think that's a really important part of finding your individual groove with having
Mm-hmm.
multiple businesses or different projects going on at the same time. What does a day-to-day schedule look like for you? Because you're balancing a PR agency, which is a lot of work,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
also creating products and reaching out to retailers, going to trade shows, doing your own press as well, social media, thrifting, cool blazers, being a
Yeah.
fiance. Like, what does your day-to-day just look like?
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay organized. It's hard sometimes. But I like every morning write out, like, I treat Lady Sargent like another client of mine, which changing that perspective has helped me so much to stay on task. So, each client, I'll write out the tasks I need to complete for that day or for that week. And then same with Lady Sargent, so that it just feels easier to accomplish all of the goals for the week and stay on track.
I love
Or
that. And
I find
that's
that I don't do enough for Lady Sargent in truth.
I love how you shifted your perspective of treating your own brand as a client.
Yeah. Yep.
That sounds like a huge shift. And I
It
think
was.
that many founders can resonate with that. Usually
Mm-hmm.
they're building a brand off of their own skill set, right? The thing they
Right.
do naturally or something that they're really passionate about. But when it's their own business, it could often fall to the bottom of the list because they're doing things for other people or working on their other
Right.
businesses. So, what helps you stay accountable to that?
Um, I think that treating it like a client where I do feel held accountable, and I am, meeting them on a regular basis. So I need to be sharing updates. The same thing with Lady Sargent, just trying to treat it in the same manner. Um, and also breaking things down into smaller, more tangible goals feels less overwhelming um, for me. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
I am digging everything that you're saying because,
Good.
again, it's really that day-to-day ritual of keeping yourself on task so that you have the space and the energy to be creative, to pour back
Exactly.
into your own cup and also into a passion project that is now turned into its own brand, and then
Mhm.
managing and balancing that with your PR agency just sounds like a really cool groove that you got going on.
Yeah, yeah, I feel really grateful for it. And yeah, I think scheduling the time to dedicate to your side hustles and not seeing it as, yeah, just like seeing it as an important part of your entire being. That helps me kind of push past the desire to kind of put it aside and focus on the PR brands. I do want to see it succeed and grow, and I need to dedicate time toward that.
Absolutely. So last question, how can people shop the cards? Say it, do it.
Great. So I have a website. It's sayit-doit.com. You can also find me on Etsy under Lady Sargent. And then my Instagram is Lady Sargent as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Cory.
thank
I
you.
love your story. Everyone go follow
Yeah,
Cory. I'll put everything, all the links in the show notes, and just thank you for being you and sharing behind the scenes. This was awesome.
thank you. That was so much fun.
Yay. All right. See
Mhm.
everyone on the next episode.